Okay, so what we're looking at right now is the informative speech conclusion assignment. This is for your speech about your country. If you need a reminder, click here. Remember, if you click on that link right here, that is going to take you directly to the overall assignment, reminding you what it is that you're doing. Because there have been a couple students that have been like, "Wait, Mr. Smith, how many informative speeches are we writing? We're just writing one. We're just kind of splitting it up into a bunch of different parts, right?" So far, if you've been keeping track, we have chosen our country that we're going to research. We have found at least three sources that can help us out with information on that country. We've chosen a topic in that country, whether we're talking about French cuisine, French cars, German history, Irish celebration of the color green, what Machu Picchu is, a bunch of different things that a lot of different students have been doing. But either way, you guys have your topic. So from there, we started doing research. As we did research, we found good quotes or good pieces of information that we plugged into our digital note card. Then you guys were able to figure out how to put it in APA citations properly. And then from there, we went into our outline. In our outline, you didn't have to write everything word for word, but you did have the opportunity to kind of like plan out your ideas as far as how your speech is going to go. Then from there, we started working on the introduction. You made a good attention getter. You then had your statement of purpose, otherwise known as the thesis of your speech. And then you had a preview of the body of your speech and the relevance to the audience. From there, we looked at the body paragraphs on Wednesday and Thursday. We talked about how the body paragraphs should be the easiest part of the assignment only because that's where all of your research is. It might be the most time consuming, but it is the one that you probably have to think the least amount on. So we talked about how you should probably have about 6 or so sentences in each body paragraph, just so that way you have, your quote and then an explanation of it, your quote and an explanation of it. And if you want to bring in more sentences, you are more than welcome to do so. But today we are looking at the final step. We are looking at the conclusion assignment. Now, most English teachers will tell you that by the time you get to the conclusion mini lesson, a lot of students are already over it already. So, in order to make sure that doesn't happen, I'm going to show you guys exactly what you need to have to make a conclusion successful and how to get the highest grade possible as you guys are finishing up and turning in your speech. So you're going to follow this graphic organizer below to make sure your conclusion has everything it needs to. It is highly recommended you've completed all other parts before this assignment. Now, it says highly recommended because you do not have to do that. However, I do know that some people work in certain stages. For some people, it's easier to do your conclusion first. For some people, it's easier to do your body paragraphs first. It does not matter what order you choose. It's just most important that you get it all done. Otherwise, if you're missing part of the speech, then you will lose out on points. So there's a place for you to put your speech title. At this point, you already know the title of your speech. But the main three elements of a conclusion is a summary of your main points, a restatement of purpose, and a rounding out statement. Okay? Now, two of these are pretty easy to kind of put together because remember, when you summarize your main points, you're just reminding your audience what you've told them. Okay? Now, what I've done, in addition to having a teacher example, is I've also given you guys a word bank. So if you're not sure how to start your sentences, you can use these sentence stems in the word bank below. So I was just thinking of random ones, and we also looked at a couple other examples. But a lot of people end their speeches saying things like in conclusion, in summation. So in summation, that's just a fancy way of saying to summarize what I've already said. Then we also have to restate what I've already said. You can also say to recap. There should actually be a comma right there. You can also say to recap what we've discussed, to conclude, as a reminder, or something along the lines of, I hope you learned something about blah, blah, blah. If there's any other stems that you can think of that you think has been helpful to you in the past, feel free to let me know and I can add them onto the sheet. Like I said, I want to make a sheet of all the sentence stems that'll help you guys throughout the entire speech writing process. So I will be doing that probably after we get off the Zoom. But then I also have my teacher example right here. But let me go back to the overall steps. Okay, really quickly. So you've already reminded your audience what you've told them. You have recapped. You have summarized what you've already said. The next thing is your restatement of your purpose. You remind your audience why you told them this, right? So the whole overall point of why they were there in the first place. This is where the I hope that you learned something about whatever the topic was can really kind of come into play. Now, I think the thing that really trips students up is the rounding it out. This is your last moment with the audience, so you can make it count. Remember that if your speech is exciting, if you already think that your speech is exciting, then you can probably end it in an exciting way. If you think your speech is already boring, then you're probably not going to be able to come up with a really boring or a really exciting way to kind of end it all. But if you feel inspired by something later on as you're kind of working on your speech, that's completely okay. That being said, Let me show you guys what I put together for my conclusion. So I'm just going to read my conclusion all in one spot, and I will move the arrow whenever I am moving from the from each section. To recap what I've discussed, Bangladesh is located in a geographic location that benefits its population growth, but it hasn't had time to economically flourish as its own independent nation. The surrounding human rights abuses have pushed hundreds of thousands of refugees into the nation. And with the current COVID crisis out of control, leaders are desperate to help all of their citizens with the resources they have. That was my summary of main points, my restatement of purpose. I hope that you learned some interesting information, and I hope that it reminded you that struggling people anywhere means struggling people everywhere. There's a typo right here. I need to get rid of that. But even though you've probably never set foot in this small Asian nation, you would be welcomed with open arms, great food, and even greater people. In conclusion, I just want to remind you that there's only one race, the human race, and NASCAR, but we should try to look out for one another. Thanks for listening. So it can be as simple as that. Okay, it doesn't need to be like this, like, oh, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Like, you don't have to do any of that stuff. Okay. Yes, that is a reference to an old Vine. It's really really old, but I'll see if I can find it for a TikTok Tuesday this week. Hang on, let me fix this typo really quick. If it'll let me, there we go. 1, 2, there we go. There we go. All right, cool. So hopefully this kind of helps you guys out with your conclusion. You'll be working on this today on your own. You'll also be working on it tomorrow during the asynchronous session. And then on Wednesday, when we come back together, we will be looking at compiling all of this, revising it into our final script. But we will talk more about that when we get there. But for now, this is how you will do the conclusion assignment.